My guest this week is Jena Covello, founder and creatrix of Agent Nateur, a natural beauty company that actually fulfills what they promise with pure, non-GMO, non-toxic ingredients that are the best in the world. Jena's journey to creating this highly successful company involves suffering and surgeries from hormone-related health problems exacerbated by toxic, man-made chemicals found in our food and environment. Listen and learn from her journey to health as we discuss everything from clean food to pure ingredients and the fight for truth in the face of well-funded adversaries. Enjoy the interview. Welcome to You Elevated. Jena Covello, CEO, Creatrix of Agent Nateur. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course, it's always good to see you. So I want to ask you something, though. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm always curious about is how do you start your day? What time do you get up and what do you do? What's your routine?
Well, I get up anytime between 4 and 6. I have some jet lag because I spend a lot of time in Europe, so sometimes it's like closer to 4. So when I get up, if the sun is rising, I will first I will raise my blinds to get some sun in the house. And then I take serrapeptase, which is this enzyme that breaks down scar tissue and endometriosis. You have to take it on a completely empty stomach. So it's easiest to take that first thing when I wake up in the morning. And then about a half hour after that, I do my celery juice. Are you doing the celery juice, Ethan?
I'm not doing celery juice. I have a very different morning routine, but I'm curious about this. Keep going. So 30 minutes later, celery juice.
And then I wait another 30 minutes and I'll either have some fruit or I'll make myself a smoothie. And then I usually I talk to all my plants, by the way.
Okay, good.
Because my apartment is like, it's all glass. So it's like a greenhouse and my orchids just keep blooming and blooming. It's like the craziest thing. One has been alive since March, which is just so crazy. And then I swim for like a half hour.
So you that's your exercise. It's easy on the joints. It's good for the muscles.
Mm-hmm. It's really good if you have like Lyme disease or endometriosis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And water is supposed to be excellent for our mental health.
Yes.
It is. There's something
healing.
called Blue Mind. Dr. Wallace Nichols talks about that.
Oh, wow.
All right. So you start with, hang on, I want to go back to where you started. What do you need on the empty stomach again? Serrapeptase?
Serrapeptase. It's a systemic enzyme which breaks down foreign tissue and scar tissue. So it'll break down endometriosis, adenomyosis. It'll help shrink fibroids. And it's really good if you've had surgery or an injury because it will break down the scar tissue. It takes about 90 days for it to begin working. So you have to be pretty religious with it.
Oh, wow. So you're committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get more into why you're doing some of that in just a minute, but I want to go back, though, for a second, because when I introduced you, we talked about Agent Nateur. Mm-hmm. How old is the company now, Agent Nateur, before I start gushing about it?
I guess 3 years old.
3 years old. And we're going to talk about the origins of Agent Nateur, too, but I want to get right into it really quickly because I'm a man, and guys are not typically into certain kind of beauty products, because that's really what Agent Nateur is you have a variety of beauty products. And
luxury beauty products.
Thank you. Luxury beauty products. And they're luxurious, but oddly enough, for a man we're not normally into things like deodorant. Mm-hmm. And I am ridiculously addicted to your Holy Man deodorant, among others. I mean, I even use your Holy Rose. But
it has a cult following. Who would have thought deodorant would have a cult following?
It's the crazy. I mean, I was in high school gyms. I played sports. You spray whatever as long as you're not rancid smelling, whatever. In terms, this stuff's amazing. It smells so good. It works so well.
Thank you.
And what's so cool about all of the Agent Nateur products is you're not harming the planet. You're not poisoning me while I'm putting it on me.
No aluminum.
Right.
If I spoke about that 20 years ago, I would have been called crazy, just like I was called crazy 5 years ago for speaking out against GMOs or vaccines. So, yeah, I mean, if anyone said that 20 years ago, which my father was saying, a lot of people really disputed the effects of aluminum on the hormones and the brain.
And so was that a big reason why you created Agent Nateur?
Yeah, that was the whole reason, because I have a history of endometriosis and estrogen dominance. And my father had been telling me since I was 16 to not use antiperspirant. And of course, I didn't listen until I had like 5 doctors in my ear back in 2014, just like repeating it over and over. So I tried all of these natural deodorants and I'm like, these don't work. And I'm like, this can't be rocket science. Like, what is going on here? And it was rocket science. It took me like 9 months. I cooked it over 100 times to get it in a stick. I was actually the first person to get natural deodorant in a stick. Baking soda natural deodorant in a stick.
And now you even have a non-baking soda one as well.
Because like 3 to 4% of customers have an allergy to the baking soda. So I created that for them.
And it smells just as good and works just as well. That's what's amazing about it again.
Thank you.
No, really. I mean, I want to go back to this. This is really interesting. So, by the way, before I finish, these are my own products, by the way. This is the Holy C that I use in conjunction with the Holy Oil that I use on my face.
I love it.
So it's like I have whatever that classic tea, and if I ever
T-zone?
use the whatever dry zone and the oily and all that stuff, if I had ever used an oil before I found Holy Oil, I would break out horribly. It was terrible for my skin. It would clog the pores. I do not know how you do it, and I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but this does not clog my pores.
I'm a magician in the kitchen.
It's amazing. I mean, but seriously, I don't even know how you do it.
Do you activate the C with water? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Oh, I activate it with the oil. I don't put any water in it. Okay. Do I need to be putting water on it?
Yes. If you use the Holy C, guys, you have got to activate it with water or it's not going to work.
Just the oil doesn't activate it?
No, you have got to use equal parts water.
Okay.
It's going to,
so maybe
it's going to really change.
But it already was removing all the red in my cheeks?
Just wait till you use the water.
Okay. Yeah. And then it's going to, all right, that's tonight now. Thank you, Jena.
You're welcome.
All right. So going back though, so you created Agent Nateur based on your own experiences and needing to create the product for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a crazy story. I had a children's clothing line and I did all of these art projects and I wrote this children's book based off of the line and it was crazy. I had all of this celebrity press and I was doing celebrity kids' birthday parties, everyone from Madonna's kids to Puffy's kids were wearing the clothes. And it wasn't really fulfilling me and I was really struggling financially. So I had done ayahuasca actually.
Wait a second. Is that peyote or something?
It's
heard of ayahuasca,
it's more intense. It's a Amazonian plant that usually comes from Peru. My friend, ayahuasca is actually known as the mother plant. Iboga is known as the father plant. And one of my best friends, she had been trying to get me to do it since 2011. I was really afraid, but it actually cleared her heroin addiction. She never touched heroin ever again, and she was actually one of the first people to bring an e-cigarette, maybe that's controversial to say, but to the U.S. She was doing it before anyone. She's like, you have to do ayahuasca. It's going to change your life. So I guess it took me 4 years until I finally did it. And it was life-changing. It changed everything. I started cooking the deodorant just a few weeks after that, out of nowhere. And after I did the ceremony, I was in Brooklyn. I was in Bushwick. And when I left, I'm like, I have to put the kids' line completely to the side and just trust that something else is going to open for me. But when I started making the deodorant, it was a very organic process. My intention really wasn't to sell it. I was just making it for myself.
Oh, wow. So the genesis, again, was for you to not put poisons into your body and make something that's all natural that actually works
Yeah.
altogether. Because those, I got to tell you, I tried like those crystals. You know, I've tried all the
they don't
natural
work.
deodorants too. And maybe smelled worse than
I
not
know.
wearing a deodorant.
It's crazy. Like they bring out smells that you didn't even know like existed.
Right. I know, it's terrible. It's true. It's like, wait, I didn't smell like that before, but now I do. And of course, I do smell, well, I guess you'll have to ask my wife and kids, but I like the smell of me wearing the Holy Man too.
Yeah. And look, it's not going to work for every single person, but it won the 2016 Glamour Beauty Award. Vogue called it the best natural deodorant on the market. Elle just called it the best natural deodorant. So there's a reason why people are saying it's the best. But, you know, is it going to work for every single person? No, because everybody's chemistry is different. Just like when everyone's wearing antiperspirant, not every antiperspirant works for you. You know, you have to find the brand that you like. And what's good is now, since Agent Nateur has led the way and everyone's following, there's many options to choose from.
You mean copycats and knockoffs?
Yeah, but that's good though. It's good though because they're creating good
That's right.
product, but
Competition's a good thing.
it is, but also some of these companies are saying they're natural and they're using propylene glycol and you really just gotta look at the ingredients and really research what they
So
actually
you're not
are.
going to go all Whole Foods on me where, you know, originally with Whole Foods, you could go in, you would trust that it was all super clean and above board. And then they slowly over time, secretly, you know, they have products at Whole Foods now that are no better than, you know, stopping at a convenience store.
Do you know that Whole Foods voted against GMO labeling like 2 years ago?
Right, because they were the company that said, we're going to enforce all of our vendors to do it anyway, is what they had originally said. And then they voted. I mean,
They're not good. I mean, they're lying. They're not selling meat that's organic. Like their meat is not organic
Right.
that they're claiming is organic. I mean,
All
at
right,
this
let's get
point, I trust Air One. That's probably, and I trust maybe some farmers markets, not all.
Yeah.
But
I have a guy I go to for produce that's amazing.
But, you know, it's like I spend so much time in Europe, and I was at my friend's apartment in Milan, and we were making salad, and just the way the lettuce like reacts to the olive oil is so different from here. I mean, it literally feels like you're eating paper when you make arugula compared to when you make a salad in Italy, because like the olive oil will absorb, and it's just crazy like how toxic our entire food supply is, even organic. That's why we all need to live on a farm, and we all need to start growing our own food.
Yeah, you don't know
basically.
that about me, but I've done some of that in the past.
It's amazing.
I want to go back to, though, you just said Milan. So one of the things that you do is you go to Europe a lot for Agent Nateur. What is that about?
Well, I get a lot of my ingredients in France and Switzerland. So I'll actually go directly to the farmers that I work with in the south of France. And when I'm in Paris, I just search for clean ingredients because there's no regulation for cosmetics in the US. So that means that anyone who sells a US cosmetic brand that's not sold in Europe doesn't have to comply by any sort of regulation. And it means they can basically be putting like formaldehyde in their formula. They can put anything they want in it, and it's not tested. So I buy my ingredients in Europe that are approved for organic cosmetics because I know I can trust the quality, and the quality is just superior, just like the food is a bit better. I mean, Monsanto is in France more so than Italy, but it's still much better than here.
Yeah, because they've spent a lot of time lobbying after the EU had pushed back against GMOs. That's where the Frankenfood, really, that name came from, was actually Europe when they fought Monsanto and glyphosate. And I know we're going to veer off into that really quickly. But you go to Europe and you source all of your ingredients. You pick your suppliers, so you know what's going into your products at Agent Nateur.
Yeah, I work with all of the suppliers every day of my life. That's basically like it's a full-time job of finding really high quality, effective ingredients. So, of course, I source like the natural oils and the essential oils, but I also work with a supplier in Europe who's approved for organic cosmetics, and there's a lot of science backed behind their product, which I like because they have incredible anti-aging ingredients that are natural, derived from plants, but processed in a way that they're highly effective.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I mean, I love that you're doing that. It means
Thanks.
a lot to a lot of us.
Thank you.
That there's somebody out there looking out for us, and you're doing that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Because to your point in the beauty practice. Oh, and by the way, just on a side note, so you're not testing your products on bunnies and beagles too?
No animal testing. Our adaptogen does have fish collagen, so that's one product that's not vegan, and 3 out of the 4 deodorants do have beeswax. So,
but are you murdering bees to get the wax? I'm always curious about why people are so concerned. There are really sustainable, functional, healthy ways of raising bees and getting beeswax.
Mm-hmm. My father raises the bees.
Oh, there you
actually.
go.
Yeah, and Shiva Rose does also. She and I collaborated on the rose deodorant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that's why I mean, there are plenty of ways to do that without ever harming, the animals that are involved. Obviously, fish collagen, they're not alive when we get the collagen out of them. That's something slightly different. But I'm a believer in balance, so it doesn't mean nothing anytime. Where did this all start for you, though? I mean, so you talked about the ayahuasca, but we talked about the aluminum in deodorant, and we're going to get into the Monsanto thing here in a minute because I've been fighting that topic as well for many years. Mm-hmm. But what is kind of the origin why you got interested in this, in the health?
My father has a circle of holistic doctors around him, and he's pretty knowledgeable, and he's his knowledge is really at the forefront of everything that's going on alternatively with medicine. So, I've struggled with endometriosis since I was 13, and I had surgery 4 times. Yeah, and it's a very, very painful condition, but back in 2010, I was getting these severe complications. I had surgery the year before, and I started seeing this holistic doctor in Beverly Hills, and she diagnosed me. She's not a gynecologist. She's an MD, and she's now a holistic dermatologist. And she said, your pain is from scar tissue. It's not the endometriosis. You have scar tissue. And she said, go to the gynecologist and have them test your tubes. See if your fallopian tubes are open, because the surgery usually can close the tubes and create scar tissue. And I went to 3 gynecologists, and they all said, oh, no, your endometriosis is fully back. You need surgery. And I'm like, well, test my tubes, do the dye test and see if they're open. And they wouldn't. And I'm like, this isn't endometriosis. It feels like something else. And sure enough, they put me under. I wake up and they're like, oh, it's your tube. You have scar tissue. So we just drained it, but we want to remove both of your tubes. And at that point, that was in May of 2010, I completely stopped trusting Western doctors because they just had no idea what they were doing. And I have so many more stories to tell in terms of having kidney stones and going to the best urologist in Beverly Hills and me actually telling him what I needed to pass the stone, and he started looking it up on WebMD, front of me. So basically, my dad's doctor gave me a a high dose of ascorbic acid, and he's like, you need a high dose of vitamin C also, right? And he said, but you need the diflucan to open the ureter to pass the, I hope I'm saying ureter. Do women have ureter or do men?
Yeah.
Men have the urethra, right?
Urethra. Yep.
Okay, so you need the diflucan.
I had a kidney stone once.
So
I wasn't drinking water in my case.
Yeah, so the diflucan opens the ureter so you can pass the stone. So I told the doctor in Beverly Hills, I said, give me the diflucan. I'm taking a high dose of vitamin C. I'm going to pass this stone. He's like, vitamin C makes stones. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I go, listen, I'm like, just give me the diflucan and I'm going to pass this. And he's Googling on WebMD and he's like, look, vitamin C causes kidney stones. I'm like, you're looking on WebMD, and I look at naturalnews.com. That's where I've been going for all of my news probably since 2011. I love Mike Adams. I know he is very controversial, but I have learned a lot from him and a lot from my father. Anyway, I took the diflucan. I passed the stone. 24 hours later, I brought it to the doctor. He's like, that's the biggest stone I've ever seen somebody pass.
Oh boy.
So that was just another affirmation of like me just being like, F these Western doctors, and really going on a path of just learning and educating myself. So
thousands of years without that style of medicine. Right?
You know what's really interesting is, so my father has this group of doctors, and they're holistic doctors, and they go to Canada. They go to Toronto for like groups, right? They like teach. And I went a few times with my dad, and one of his friends is a dentist, and he started curing cancer because he was removing root canals. And these people, anyone who has a root canal, what they don't know is you don't have any symptoms, right? Uh-huh. But these people had cancer. He was taking the root canal out, cleaning it with homeopathic medicine, and their cancer was going away. And the people that had the cancer were there talking about it.
It is so funny that you're bringing that up. This is a deeply controversial topic. Mm-hmm. We convinced a family member who had an injury with a tooth, and the dentist said, we need to do a root canal. And we said, nope, have them pull the tooth. Don't do a root canal, pull the tooth. Mm-hmm. Because
getting goosebumps.
There's no other medical procedure in any medicine where you leave a dead body part in the body, which can continue producing all kinds of toxic bacteria. That's why I don't know which doctor you're talking about, but
his name is Jerry Smith. He's in Pennsylvania.
There's so much. I mean, it's just, you don't even have to study it. You just think of the logic of that. Yeah. Yes, let's leave the dead body part in to continue infecting the body.
Well, people flip out on me when I say this because they're like, it's too expensive to pull the tooth and to get the fake tooth.
Root canals
and I'm
are expensive.
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, so wait a second.
I'm a Gemini, so we're going all over the place even.
So we're off on the root canal. So, but I want to go back to you for a second. So we talked about kidney stone, endometriosis. So your doctor here talked about it being scar tissue.
Yes.
Not a reoccurrence of the endometriosis.
Right.
So where does that go in terms of how you're treating that then?
So at that point, I got really into supplements. And I got into really high quality supplements also because my dad's other friend has this company called Touchstone Essentials, and he makes all of his own vitamins, and everything is derived from organic fruits and vegetables. And he started teaching me how some of these vitamins were like derived from really awful chemicals, and that not all supplements were created equal. So, my philosophy is that we live in this toxic world, and our food is pretty toxic as well. And I'm a huge believer in, prayer, meditation, blessing the food before we eat it, but also that supplements are really the way to prevent, future illnesses from occurring. So I mean, if you look at my counter, I take a lot of supplements. But I also have a few different health issues. Not everybody has to be as diligent as me, but,
What do you think is the source, though, of those health issues? Because I think you mentioned something to me once about that. When did, but the endometriosis is common in women. It's not uncommon at all. But a lot of women do get that where the lining of the uterus is growing outside, right? And that's what endometriosis is. But you've had more than just endometriosis.
So I have adenomyosis as well. And adenomyosis is when the endometriosis invades the muscle of the uterus. And I believe I got that because I had a C-section surgery for the endometriosis 15 years ago.
Wait, they did an actual C-section?
She had no idea what she was doing.
They go through like the belly button to do it normally, don't they?
I was literally like in the ghetto in New Jersey when I had this surgery, and she's actually like has several lawsuits against her right now, not from me, but she butchered me basically. And the problem with endometriosis is that if you operate and you don't get it all, it spreads. So when you make that cut with the knife for the C-section, she spread it to the muscle, so it's trapped inside the muscle. Now, like I was under a lot. Usually you're not diagnosed with it until you're 35, right? So a month before I turned 35, my pain, I mean, it was like way worse than I imagined labor pain to be. Like nothing was taking the pain away. It was insane. Like, I mean, screaming, flipping out, throwing up pain. And it's kind of been that way for the last 4 years up until this year. It has taken 4 years for me to calm it down. And the only remedy that all of these doctors have given me is to have a hysterectomy.
That's it.
That's it. I went to there's one surgeon in the U.S. who operates on adenomyosis, and I went to St. Louis in May to have the surgery, and he couldn't perform it because I had too much scar tissue from all the past surgeries. So each time you're having surgery for endometriosis, when you have stage 4 endometriosis, and they're going in and they're scraping everything, and they're trying to get rid of everything, it's creating more damage. But if you need the surgery, I'm not saying to not get it, but there's ways to counteract that I wish I knew sooner. I wish I knew about myofascial release. I wish I was doing cupping, and I wish I was taking the systemic enzymes, because those enzymes will really break down that scar tissue. And first, the number one thing is if you have endometriosis, you need to get your stress under control. You need to be meditating every day. You need to smoke weed. You need to do whatever you have to do to not stress. Because when you stress, your estrogen levels go up, and that completely triggers the endometriosis.
And that stress is just bad
Oh,
everywhere.
and
whether you have endometriosis or not, that kind of stress is...
it's inflammation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So are you on an anti-inflammatory diet as well?
Yeah, I've been on the AIP diet. Dr. Will Cole put me on the AIP
He'll be
diet.
on the show soon.
Yeah, he put me on the diet back in, I started it last June, a year ago, but I really went like hardcore on the diet in September.
So tell me about the AIP diet.
Well, the thing is, the one thing I have to preface this, that anybody who has an autoimmune condition should definitely be on an anti-inflammatory diet. But these diets are very high in fat. And what I'm learning is I think coconut oil is inflammatory. And it was really bothering me. And I don't think that I eliminated the coconut oil. And I read this book called The Keystone Approach. And I think that is the best diet for anyone to follow who has an autoimmune condition, because it talks about lowering the histamine. So avoiding things that can trigger it, like too many avocados, too much spinach, eliminating all oils except olive oil. And that to me has been the most helpful. But
who doesn't love extra virgin olive oil?
I know,
Just
right?
Douse it. I can't get enough.
Me neither, especially from Italy.
Yes,
exactly. Pour it on everything. Yeah.
So that's the approach, and I'm on board with the anti-inflammatory diet because I don't know if I can show it on the camera, but
show it.
I have a huge scar. I had a back. They don't even do this surgery anymore. I had my shoulder butchered. They cut off part of my collarbone.
Oh my gosh.
Huge. I couldn't really do stuff above here for years. And for me, it was a combination of something called a supernova. It's an exercise like ball that it breaks up muscle.
Yeah.
But it broke up my scar tissue. That in conjunction with collagen
Yeah.
and a low inflammatory diet,
Yeah.
I now military press my daughter.
Do you have pain?
No, that all went away
That's
with the
great.
low inflammatory diet.
That's
so
great.
I found, so in my case, it was Dr. Stephen Gundry with the plant paradox. We kind of do that, a little bit of Ayurvedic approach to it. And I added a ton of, in my case, collagen. I found
Super
really
helpful.
Yeah, very helpful because we forget that a lot of that connective tissue is collagen. And so like in your adaptogenic, the collagen is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that product you created with Dr. Will Cole is stellar.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, people really, I think that adaptogen will probably really explode in another year or two. I think it's taking people a little bit longer to catch up on the importance of supplements and adaptogens, but it is a stellar product. I mean, you can't get better quality than what we've sourced. And not only the collagen, but the collagen helps repair the gut also, and it helps with leaky gut, which I think over 90% of Americans have leaky gut.
We all drink A1 protein milk.
Well, it's also the glyphosate and the GMOs completely.
So, okay, we're going to dive into that for a second.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know, seriously. So there was the huge victory up in San Francisco recently, $289 million ruling against Monsanto. Dwayne Johnson is his name, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The jury found it was a civil trial, preponderance of the evidence. Monsanto has been lying to us about the cancer-causing effects of glyphosate. Not only that, I'm sorry, I've got to get on a soapbox for just a second. They lied on the FDA application all the way back to 1974. They said it was supposed to dissipate naturally. It was never supposed to make it past the basic part of our GI tract, yet we found it in mother's milk. We find it was supposed to dissipate in water in less than 30 days. It stays in water up to 270 days, we're now finding out. And it's in everything. It's in crackers.
In the organic food. It's all the
everything.
residue is in the organic food now. So all we can do now pretty much is reverse the effects with the supplements.
Yeah.
That's
So tell me,
basically what we have to do.
what first brought your attention? Was it your dad that first brought your attention to glyphosate and Roundup? Because remember, it's a little glyphosate is the basic ingredient, which is bad enough, but all of the chemicals they add in makes it much worse when you actually create Roundup. I'm hopefully in the next couple of days, I have an alternative weed killer that uses vinegar and just the tiniest bit of dish soap, which by the way, you can buy a high quality dish soap.
That's what my dad uses. Yeah.
He does that too.
Yeah.
You don't need toxic chemicals to control weeds.
So, well, first and foremost, Monsanto actually goes back to the Reagan years. And Reagan approved...
Vietnam, Agent Orange.
Well, also aspartame. Monsanto is the company that developed like Sweet and Low. And,
I didn't know that.
And the Bush, the father, and Reagan really paved the way for Monsanto to enter the marketplace. I'll have to send you the article.
I would love to. And you know that product, those artificial
sweeteners,
one packet kills half your gut bacteria.
Ants won't go near it. It's really funny, like if you pour it, like ants won't touch it. They'll avoid it. Is that
what does that
crazy?
tell you?
Right?
Ants?
I mean, they won't touch it. So basically, my father was the one who really started teaching me about all of that, I guess, back in like 2010, 2011. And I started really listening to Mike Adams because I found that what he was saying, like everything he was saying, I started posting on Facebook and I was getting like a lot of heat for the things I was posting, and I was like called a conspiracy theorist. And in LA, I've been attacked heavily because I've called out Hillary's involvement with Monsanto, and I have shown how Obama had signed the Dark Act, but it's not so much political because this is Reagan, this is Bush, this is Obama, this is Hillary, this is a corporation, and these politicians are just financially tied and they're just trying to make money. But what a lot of people don't realize is, sure, pesticides, herbicides are bad. Yes, Trump is doing something with chloriferous. It seems like Trump is in bed with
chlorpyrifos.
What is it called?
Chlorpyrifos.
Chlorpyrifos.
Yes,
Sorry,
super toxic chemical.
but he seems to be in bed with Dole, right? Where Obama, Hillary in bed with Monsanto. Okay, I'm not saying that chemical is less toxic. It is less toxic. But what I'm saying is that Monsanto has poisoned our entire supply of food. And
they did it in the name of profit.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it because they sell the seeds, and they made the seeds and that soy and that corn and that cotton resistant to Roundup. So the farmers end up using, in 2016, this was never even imagined when it was invented in the early 1970s. In 2016, we dumped 200 million pounds of glyphosate across the United States in 1 year.
yeah, on the parks as well.
Yes, schools.
My mom was the director of purchasing in New Jersey, right? In a county in New Jersey, in Mercer County. And this is going back to 2014, 2015, and she had to sign off. She was the one that had to sign off on anything that had to be paid, right, by the city. So they wanted to spray all the parks with glyphosate, and she refused to sign off, and they heavily threatened her. And it's like actually turned into a lawsuit, and yeah, it's really awful. But they called her crazy, and they said how safe it was, and it's highly upsetting to me because, number one, okay, so a lot of people aren't really familiar with what Monsanto is. Okay, so we have two separate things going on. We have GMO, which are genetically modified seeds, and then we have glyphosate. And glyphosate is the herbicide that is sprayed on all of the food that's not organic, which is the weed killer. It's also sprayed in the parks, and it's also sprayed in somebody's backyard, schools. But somebody who's spraying the weed killer, somebody who's spraying Roundup, also known as glyphosate. So guys, when you go to, where do we buy our
Orchard
plants?
Supply.
Okay, or the other one, Home Depot. When you go to Home Depot and you're getting a weed killer, do not buy Roundup, okay? So when you're spraying Roundup in your yard, that is like 100,000 times more concentrated than actually spraying the field, than spraying a huge field with. So it's even worse when you're using it in your backyard, is my point. So basically, for the genetically modified seeds, we have Monsanto is basically fucked up. Can I curse? Just once. Sorry. They've ruined all the sugar. Okay, so it's sugar, it's soy, it's corn, it's wheat, and
cotton.
It's cotton, which we're wearing. Okay, and it's also alfalfa sprouts as well. Am I leaving one out?
I'm sure there's at least one more. So sugar beets.
Sugar beets
Is the big one.
Yes,
and
soy,
they're almost completely
corn.
I know there's one more. I'm not remembering.
Alfalfa. What is the other one? But I was driving from St. Louis to Chicago back when I went to St. Louis for the surgery in May. And my brother and my mom had driven across country, right? And they said that they saw them spraying everything with the glyphosate, and they said they choked. And I'm like, okay, you guys are exaggerating. You weren't choking, right? I didn't believe it. Well, I could not. I was coughing. I was literally in the car, with my scarf around my neck. I'm like, this is awful. So I started documenting it on my Instagram, and I had all of these people writing me from Iowa to St. Louis, even from California, saying we live by the fields, and we live by the fields, and I have 5 members of my family who have cancer, or everybody over the age of 60 who lives by me has cancer. And what was weird is, while this was going on, I was listening to Dr. Zach Bush's podcast on Rich Roll. And everybody in the world needs to listen to this podcast. It's the most important podcast of the century because it shows you that this is how you control the population. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and the way you control them is through the food. And
water.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to this is happening to me. And then I'm writing this on Instagram, and they're writing in, and they're telling me, it was the most ironic thing. They're telling me to buy Restore from Zach Bush, who I was listening to. Have you taken?
We use Restore.
Yeah, it's great. Well,
actually, we learned about it, I think, from you.
Yeah, well, it's great to reverse glyphosate because it helps the gut.
It's what it really is it's enzymes and minerals that are good for the gut function.
Right. It repairs the gut.
Yeah, and it's so it's really easy. By the way, it's flavorless, it's colorless.
Yeah.
You even sneak it in our kids' water. Hopefully, they're not watching this.
Yeah.
So when my kids have a glass of water, we start our day. They have a glass of water. We put Restore in their water.
Yeah. But you know what the glyphosate is doing? It's going to take 75 years to reverse the effects of glyphosate. And what it's doing is it's depleting the soil of minerals and vitamins. So when you grow a tomato, there's no benefit inside that tomato anymore.
Did you see the study on this? So
I've read a lot.
There was one 9 months ago. This was from, I can't remember who published it now. I talked about it on my radio show live. And what happened is they pulled seeds out from the Smithsonian from the 1950s, and they used current seeds, and they grew them side by side, and the nutritional content of the plants grown, the vegetables grown from today's seeds had half. It was half the vitamins and minerals of the vegetables from the 1950s seeds. So to your point, we have depleted food.
It's really scary because I don't worry about me so much because I'm informed. I worry about people who can't afford organic. I worry about people who have no idea about these topics. And that's why I'm creating awareness through social media so I can just keep educating as many people as possible. But, Bayer bought Monsanto, and they will no longer go by the name Monsanto. They'll simply go by the name Bayer. So that's going to really trick the public.
Yeah, and just real quick side note, Bayer AG is the giant German conglomerate who is responsible a drug and chemical company too.
Responsible for aspirin, which there's been more drug-related deaths from aspirin than any other drug on the market.
Yeah, my uncle ran a pharmaceutical company for a little while that did generic manufacturing, and he told me the story. He said, there's no way aspirin would ever make it through the FDA process nowadays because of all the toxic side effects from it. It's so bad for the gut, among other things.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm not going to lie. I have to take a heavy dose of Motrin for my pain. But
you really?
I do. I can't, I have a system of what I have to, well, first, I think I was getting the leaky gut from the Motrin, right? Because the NSAIDs calls. NSAIDs are ibuprofen, Motrin, Aleve. Basically, they disrupt the gut, right?
And sometimes we do have to take them, though.
I have to.
Yeah, just to function.
But what I do is I stay on the autoimmune diet, which repairs the gut. And I go on a crazy cleanse where I drink a ton of bone broth during the time that I'm taking it.
I want to ask you a question about bone broth.
Tell me, because you think the metals?
I'm super concerned about that. So where we store heavy metals is in our bones.
Bones, yeah.
And so I've never gotten into the bone broth thing. And I tried because I'm like, oh, of course that makes sense. But that's why I take collagen separately. Because when you cook down
the bones,
you have the heavy metals.
Yeah. But I think if you're getting good quality bone broth.
Okay.
Look, back in, what year are we in? Okay, January 2017, I had lead poisoning, right? I was off the charts for mercury and lead. And for lead poisoning, you can really only get it out through EDTA and DMSA, and they're basically that's the formula that you take to extract the lead to chelate the lead. And it is, I lost all sense of taste for almost 90 days. I was flipping out. It happened on New Year's Eve. I woke up on New Year's Eve and I was eating some blueberries and I lost all sense of taste. And I'm like, what is going on? And it lasted through February. You can ask Will Cole. I was texting him I go, is my taste ever going to come back? I go, if it's not, just tell me. It was the most depressing thing in the world. I was actually I wouldn't even eat because you don't realize that you're actually eating not because you're hungry, but because you like the taste of food, like your amazing gluten-free brownie that you made me. But I wasn't even eating because I'm why am I going to like a salad? It was I just tasted the texture and it was disgusting. Anyway, I went heavy on the bone broth. I just redid my heavy metal test a month ago, and the lead poisoning is significantly lower. So, and I've been doing the bone broth for over a year, and I feel good on it. And I think you really have to go by how you feel on something.
Always listen to your body.
Yeah, listen to your body.
So what about the mercury though? Where was the source of this lead and mercury?
Well, mercury is in all of the seafood, right? It's in the
water
sushi. But it's now in the soil also, and it's going to be so controversial for me to say chemtrails. That's something my dad has been my dad has been talking about weather modification and chemtrails for so long. And I used to say, Dad, you're crazy. You're taking it too far.
But
you're going too far,
I always caution
Dad.
people, don't conflate the two because weather modification with silver iodide has been going on since the 1950s.
Yeah.
And chemtrails are something slightly different.
Yes.
And I have thoughts on chemtrails, but maybe don't align with yours entirely. I'd love to talk to your dad more about that. But definitely weather modification. But just even in general, regardless of the source, there is mercury in everything because of the pollution, because we continue burning. The number one source of mercury is coal.
But you know what? Two things. First of all, those hurricanes in Florida, there's more going on with that than we're aware of.
What do you mean by that? What's going on with the hurricane?
There's weather modification happening with some of these storms.
Hurricanes?
Yes.
Because normally it's to precipitate out clouds or to produce rain in areas.
You're going to see in 10 more years, Ethan. You're going to say she said it in 2018.
All right. Well, we've got it. We're recording it.
Let's not go too far into it because, they're going to say that I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. But listen, look at all the fires in California. Look at the fire in December. Look at the extent to which those fires went and how many acres in California burned.
The largest and the largest. We just had 3 of the largest fires in California history.
It's because those chemtrails are dropping aluminum and heavy metals onto those plants and those trees. And when you mix metal and you mix fire, you're going to get an insane fire.
Yeah, I just talked to one of the captains fighting up in the big car, the Mendocino Complex fires. Mm-hmm. And he fought the Thomas fire last year too. And please eat.
Guys, this is the best brownie ever. I'm going to put his recipe on my Instagram. You have to follow me at agentnateur.com. And don't make any bad remarks about anything regarding chemtrails. But you just need some sea salt on top, and then I'm in heaven. All
right. I'm sure, and my wife will agree with you with the sea salt on top. So
these are insane.
And it's like a fat protein bomb. Actually, Dr. Will Cole would probably like them too with his new book, Ketotarian, coming out. Mm-hmm. That is a keto-compliant brownie as well. Mm. So, and it has reishi and cordyceps in it too.
This does?
Yes.
Oh, it's amazing. What do you think of keto?
I'm way into it. So I've always known that I don't do well with carbs. I've just known it because when I would listen to my body was always
anyone?
Some people do.
Yeah.
So we're not all genetically the same. There is a percentage of the population that does okay with carbs. Nobody does great with a lot of simple carbs, but there are people who handle it better than others. But I have a child who's a type 1 diabetic. I wear a continuous glucose monitor now. And I was able to, I now see, hang on, this is interesting. So I can't do a hardcore keto diet. I have to do kind of a mellow keto diet, if that makes any sense at all. So for example, I started wearing this continuous glucose monitor. I can see what my blood glucose is doing at all times. And so I can show you guys this. So you can see there I am. I'm 89.2 right now, which is right in range. But if I have a full keto dinner at 5 and I do my intermittent fasting with it and I go do a hardcore workout, and I knew this back in high school. I played 3 sports. After a really serious workout, whether it was for football or basketball, I would need to lay down for 2 or 3 hours. No joke, to recover. I was just totally blown. Yeah, now I see if I do a really hardcore workout after doing a keto dinner, intermittent fast, unlike other people, my blood glucose dropped to 40.
Wow.
Which is like dangerous. You're on the edge of going into a coma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to actually have a little bit, if I'm going to do a super intense, like this morning, I had a good workout, not a super intense one. I didn't have to add carbs. So I still was okay. I still was in range. But if I'm going to do a really intense workout, I actually have to have carbs before I work out, which is like against what everybody is saying right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on I trust medical medium, I have to say. The more I read, and he's really against these high-fat diets, and I'm in agreement with him.
I like fat. I like protein, but I don't. I've
do
dialed
too.
way back on
I
the
do
coconut
too,
oil
but I
too.
think you need a balance, And I really believe that fruit is healing.
It is.
Yeah, fruit is
so
healing.
It is healing, and we know blueberries, and I know you don't do as well with strawberries, I think,
Yeah,
right?
I
But
don't
raspberries,
personally.
strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, pomegranates, I like too.
All antioxidants.
Yes, they're so powerful. But you have to eat it when it's in season and it's fresh. That's
Yeah,
the
you
key.
should eat everything in season, but like cherries are amazing for your pancreas.
Yeah.
Pears are great for your pancreas. I love that medical medium really goes into explaining which fruits are best for each organ of the body.
Right.
But I feel better since I've incorporated, because on AIP, you can only have 1 to 2 cups of fruit a day. And I stopped doing that. And I started listening to medical medium. I started having dates in the morning. And I feel better.
Yeah,
I feel
because
better
again, you're listening to your
incorporating.
body.
Yeah.
That's what this always, everything comes back to, what is your body? So I do better. If I eat a lot of carbs and I eat bread, I kind of blow up. I immediately.
Me too.
Right
Me
through
too.
the middle, I just, even the best sourdough,
Unless I'm in Italy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not really. And glyphosate is in Europe, but I'm not like blowing up as much.
Yeah.
I'm eating pasta.
If I do Dr. Gundry's like lectin shield with bread, it helps with the like bloatiness of the bread. But I just
The
immediately
glyphosate helps also. I mean, the restore
Restored
helps
it.
for the glyphosate bloating too.
Ugh, it's bad news. But I like the fat and the protein and lower carb.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Me too.
But I'm not a purist in anything. I believe purity is what kills a lot of people. Because when humans strive for purity, we become intolerant of others.
Yeah.
And so I believe
Which
in
we're seeing a lot of these days.
not again, and I fear for that. We killed 100 million people over the idea of purity in the 20th century. 100 million people died because we said we want purity.
Well, anything that's setting somebody off so bad to the point where anything that's causing such a reaction, you really have to look inside yourself and say, what's this mirroring back in you? Because anything you're, so angry about is something that's inside of yourself.
So if you were to go back in time and to that 13-year-old self when you were diagnosed at 13 with endometriosis?
No, I was diagnosed at 23.
But you thought that you had it starting.
I mean, my periods were just, I was out of school every month, or, it was just always excruciating.
So let's go back to your 13-year-old self. What would you have told her to do differently at 13?
I have no regrets, so nothing, because this path has led me to Agent and it's led me here today. So, and this whole entire path has enabled me to help so many other people. So, there's nothing I would have done differently. And even the botched surgery, it was all a blessing in disguise, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have Agent.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love Agent, and you've been an inspiration.
Oh, thank
Me,
you.
my wife, our family.
Thank
the products
you.
are absolutely phenomenal.
Thank
I mean
you.
it. And it's really
Thank
important.
you.
It's what you're doing with the message that you're spreading out there on Instagram and it coming on this show. I can't thank you enough, Jena Covello.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. And thank you for, you're actually someone on the news that people can trust, and I think today a lot of people are weary of reporters or anyone who's on these major news channels, which you are, but I know that I can actually listen to you and I can trust what you're saying is true and that you don't have an agenda. And I think that's rare. So thank you.
Thank you, Jena. Would you be willing to do us a favor? Please subscribe to the channel and share the episode with your friends and family.